is the Monday Morning Motivator with Magoch. Good morning, and welcome to the Monday Morning Motivator. I hope you like my Oprah intro there. I don't know. It was a good homage to Oprah. So good morning. Welcome to the Monday Morning Motivator. I'm back from the beach, back in the cold. But hey, I appreciate a dynamic climate, shall we say. So this week I actually wanted to get pretty technical with you on something, since last week we spoke about kind of like really success principles and focus and expanding time with your mind. So if you want to see that one, that's meeting 4. Totally check it out. It's about how to get more things done in less time by using some principles of quantum physics to in your corner to help you do that. So while that's expanding your mind and your mind is blown over that and you're working on applying that to your business, this week I wanted to dive into a little more technical stuff and focus on recruiting the right salespeople for your startup. This is crucial. It's a huge problem I hear all the time, and I can totally help. It's part of my genius zone. So I want to share some of that with you today, if it's cool. If you don't know me, by the way, if it's your first time here, I'm Jessica Magoch, CEO of JPM Sales Partners. I help companies recruit, train, and manage the next generation of salespeople. I specialize in female-led B2B tech startups. So mission driven, of course, always. So again, if you're unfamiliar with the meeting, jump back to meeting 1 because I explain in detail kind of the principles behind some of what we do, especially in the metrics section. And so what I'd like to do before we jump into what's working for me right now in marketing and tracking our numbers, taking accountability, and diving into how to find the right salesperson for your startup, I'm going to take a moment, take a deep breath. I do this for me too, because I need to center sometimes too, all the time. And remember why the heck you're doing this in the first place. Building a business is hard. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of rejection and disappointment. And it can be really easy to forget why you started. So take that moment and remember that day that you decided to start your business or sell whatever you're selling. Remember why you decided to do it. Was it a problem that you really wanted to solve in the market that you knew you could do better than anyone else? Something that really got you angry? Was there an issue that really got you angry? You know what something really gets me angry is the percentage of female founders that receive investment funding. That gets me really angry, the low percentage. So those are some things that fuel me to keep doing what I do. And I just want you to think about what's that thing for you? What is that thing that keeps you going when times are hard? What's your big end goal for your business, for your company? And personally, how is that going to look in your life? How is your lifestyle going to change when you've achieved that? Zig Ziglar says, if you help enough other people get what they want, then you'll get what you want. So it's not about, if you make more, you're taking from somebody else. By helping other people, in return, you get helped. Your income increases, your lifestyle increases, your ability to give back increases. So think about how your lifestyle will change and what you can do for your family and your community when you've reached your business goals. Okay, it's super important to keep that in front of your mind because what I'm going to tell you is really hard. I'm going to give you some hard work to do this week and teach you some really in-depth concepts about recruiting salespeople. And you're not going to want to do it and you're not going to want to apply it. But if you remember that why, then you'll have that fuel to get you through. You'll have that fuel to get you through the whole week and continue taking risks and putting yourself out there. So I want to commend you for starting your own business in the first place, because whether you're an independent salesperson or you're a business owner, you've already proven that you're a big risk taker and you're not willing to settle for the status quo. So that's a huge step in the first place. So let's make that dream happen. All right. Now, first thing we're going to do is take accountability on your metrics. Who out there counted their metrics this week? I know you did. You're finally starting to do it. I'm so happy that you're catching on. So again, if you don't know what these phrases are, what I'm talking about, go back to the first meeting, because keeping count of your metrics keeps you accountable in your business. You can only improve what you can measure, is the saying, right? So we need to start measuring every aspect of our business. And of course, I focus on the sales side of it. So measuring every aspect of your business so that you can improve it one step at a time. You can see which parts of your funnel are broken, which are leaky, that people are exiting and you don't want them to exit. So you need to know that by tracking your numbers. It also keeps you accountable for what you're actually doing in your business. At the end of the week, you might be tired, exhausted, right? You're ready for a break. At the end of the day, by the end of Monday, you might feel that way. But your level of exhaustion is not in direct relation to your results. If it were, then a lot more people would be successful, right? Financially. So it's not a relation of how hard you worked or how tired you are at the end of the week, how much you feel like you've put in. It's a matter of how much you actually did put in and the results that came out on the other side. So if you didn't do it, track it now. How many outbound prospecting strategies did you use? How many people did you actually, quote unquote, touch? Not literally people, we're not getting there. But whether it was through, a cold email campaign or cold calling or networking events or trade shows, all of those different ways that you can garner business, how many outbound touches did you make and how many of those converted to leads? So people who said, hey, I'm interested, that's me. How many companies converted from a lead into a discovery session? So you're doing a deep dive into if they are not only appropriate for your product, but if it's the right, if it's time to buy. And then from those, how many of those companies turned into presentations? So you determined they're a good fit and it's time to buy. So how many did you actually present your product or service to? And then how many of those turned into closed deals? How many of those entered the dreaded follow-up stage, which we try to avoid with a one-call close strategy. But so how many of those entered the dreaded follow-up stage and then, finally closed? And then ongoing from there. And then how many referrals did you receive from those closed sales? And even, beyond. So how many of those renewed? How many of those dropped out? What are your retention rates after you've closed the sale? All of those things you need to track. You could be bringing in tons of people through the door. If they don't stick, what's the point, right? So we're tracking all of those different phases so that we make sure we can see where we might have room for improvement. And there's one thing that's for sure. The numbers do not lie, okay? That's why people avoid doing their numbers or, tracking their numbers because they don't lie. And at the end of the week, you go, oh my goodness, that is not what I thought I did. I swear I did 200 outbounds and it was only 20, So, or in your head, but you don't know how bad it is, right? So we got to get that stuff down on paper and track it from week to week. Because also, if you're going to scale anything, you need to know how to replicate everything that you're doing for other people to copy and repeat. Rinse and repeat. That's what we do when we build sales teams. And that's what we're going to talk about today is how to bring on the right people so they can rinse and repeat the process that you've created as a business owner or, the first salesperson in, creating a strategy that's replicable so that someone can come in, repeat exactly what you're doing, and get the same results, okay? It's a lot harder than it sounds. So that's really what I help people do. Create predictable, replicable sales strategies, teach them how to implement it themselves, and then bring on people to implement and scale it for them. So let's talk about recruiting, okay? Because if we include this in Marketing Minute as well, certainly a huge marketing strategy that's worked for me in the past is having a sales team. And even your sales team isn't necessarily, I want to put this out there that this is a side note. I tend to go on tangents if you didn't notice, but it'll all come back. Don't worry. Your sales team isn't always what you think your sales team is. So when I think about who are my salespeople, they're not always people that are, sitting at desks with business cards with my company's name on it, right? Salespeople are also affiliate partners, to use the technical digital term. They're anyone who's been a client in the past who's talking about me to other people. Those are my salespeople too, So you have arms that reach out, and you need to be able to deliver that message through as many channels as possible. But today I wanted to talk about building that direct sales team. Those people that are dedicated to selling your product, service, software, whatever it is, on a full-time or near full-time basis. So, first of all, how do you know if you're ready to hire a salesperson? I wrote an article about this on LinkedIn. It was really popular, and it's a 10-step checklist. So I'll put a link to that in the 10-step checklist to know if you're ready to hire your first salesperson. One huge factor in there that gets a lot of pushback, which is how I know it's necessary. The thing people most don't want to do is usually the thing that's going to help them the most, is that the founder, the CEO, the person who started this thing, or one of the people that started this thing, needs to be the first person to sell. Because nobody is going to get on board with your vision or your idea if you are not willing to sell it yourself. Okay? You can't hire other people to sell something. Even if you pay them to do it, it's still something that they have to overcome, obstacles and take rejection and all that in order to do. And also they need to see a proven strategy and structure so that there's not a long learning curve to jump in and start making money, right? Because any good sales compensation is highly focused on commission, and commission only being usually the most beneficial and the most highly compensative if it's built right and if the product's right and the offer's right and all that. So the CEO or the founder, someone from the founding team, getting those first sales themselves. And I see this a lot too with companies who are hiring commission-only salespeople or, full-time salespeople on salary, is that they haven't really developed a winning sales strategy on their own. So they're looking for the salespeople to do that. And I have to tell you, it takes a very highly skilled salesperson to be able to develop a sales strategy and scripts from scratch in a way that is replicable and duplicatable so that they can teach other salespeople that come in. So a very rare salesperson is going to do that, and they're going to be very, very expensive. But startup owners are expecting that the salesperson's going to come in and solve all those problems. It's not how it works. No one is going to believe in what you do more than you. You have to be the first person that's willing to go out there on a limb and talk to your customers face to face. You're going to learn so much from your customers, and that's going to help you create the best products for them too, right? Is from getting feedback from them directly so that you can get feedback, understand what they really need and what they really want, and develop then a marketing message that talks right to them. And then that's something that you can teach to salespeople when they do come on. Because if they don't make sale in the first 3 months, I mean, for me, it's like a week, I'll lose interest really fast. You need to feed them with sales. Salespeople thrive off of making sales. So they need to see those wins as quickly as possible. Okay, so you need to have made at least 10 sales on your own to people you don't know. So cold prospecting methods, okay? A lot of times businesses start with betas that convert to clients and all that. So consider that all your market testing and all that. But now we're starting from cold prospecting into closed deals. And 10's not a lot, right? 10's not a huge number. But if you get to 10, you can go to 100. And if you go to 100, you can go to 1,000. So getting that first 10 is going to be where the refining and all that happens, the building, the foundation, and all the sales scripts and strategies. So if you haven't done the first 10 sales, don't even think about hiring somebody. Think about creating and documenting everything that is working to make a sale so that a salesperson can come in and duplicate. That's basically called a sales playbook. So I help people do that too. So let's talk about, all right, so there's other things. So one is you're going to have made your own first 10 sales. 2 is your product has to be awesome, right? Like if you have a salesperson out there selling the wrong product to the wrong person, doesn't matter how great they are. So we need to make sure we're selling the right product to the right ideal customer or target market. And 3rd, you have to have a really good compensation plan. In my management and sales scaling courses, I have all compensation workshops on how to build compensation strategies to attract the right salespeople. But here's what happens when you attract the wrong salespeople. Okay, so some people might think, well, I just need any salesperson will do, right? Like, I just need someone who could sell this. And they think that perhaps, and this is a mindset thing, is, because nobody would want to do sales in the first place. They come from a place of desperation, and they'll take anyone who is willing to sell their product, because they know that they wouldn't want to do it on their own. But once you do your own 10 sales and you start to get in a rhythm and you see that it's possible, then it's time to bring on people to scale that. And you'll see that it's not a job to be, desperate to hire people. Because when you hire the wrong person, one, you're not a big brand name yet, right? So your salespeople are your brand in the marketplace. If you get the wrong person representing your brand, it could have a long-term effect on the reputation of your company. So that has to do with, professionalism and personality, and do they match your company culture and all that. So another thing is bringing in an underperforming salesperson, and then they start to set the standard for other salespeople. So you have someone, creating a low bar, and then everyone else is going to go under that low bar. And it's this like cyclical, negative effect of bringing in the wrong people onto your team and keeping the wrong people on your team, which is retention. So that's a whole other thing. And also it costs money to bring on the wrong people. Even if you're hiring commission-only reps, it costs money to train them and give them the resources that they need to be successful, right? Commission only, you need to give them leads. If they have to start a whole lead generation strategy on their own, that's like 6 months before they see a sale. So we need to make sure that we're supporting them in all the other ways that we can to replace that base salary. And of course, if you're paying a base salary, that's real money that you can see going out the window when someone's not performing. So all of these things are why it's really important to hire the right people and let go of the wrong people as soon as you know that they're the wrong people. Okay? It's really hard. And in my business, we hired about, I would interview 25 people every week, and we'd hire about 10, and then about 3 of them would complete the training program. And then 1 of them would be a full-time, consistently producing rep. And so that sounds like we're losing a lot of people along the way. That's exactly the purpose of that, because, and this goes into my recruiting strategy, is that you want to make the recruiting process and the interview process what I call an elimination funnel. So people are self-eliminating. I know that could sound like gross, but it's the best way I can describe it. People are letting themselves out of the funnel. So the pressure isn't on you to pick the right salesperson. They will self-select. They will select themselves if you've created a funnel that puts them through certain tests to get to the end, to come on board with you. So I'm going to show you how that works. And so think about how you can apply this to your business instead of saying like, well, my business is totally different, it's not going to work. Think about how you can apply it to your business, okay? I know some people are only looking to hire 2 or 3 salespeople, but not realizing that to get that one great salesperson, you'll need to interview 20 to get one performer. And to interview 20, you're going to have to get probably 100, maybe not 100, maybe 50 or so resumes in, and then book in the 20 interviews. So here's how this looks. Here's my trusty, I have a huge window right in front of me overlooking the outside. That's why there's this big glare always right on my whiteboard. All right, so are you guys ready? I know it's Monday, we're getting deep, but this is super important because I get this question a lot. There's this mystery about how do you choose the right salesperson. And I've developed actually this assessment that uses, the technical term would be predictive analytics. I like to use like really fancy technical terms, but it's taking data from the past and applying it into an assessment that predicts sales performance going forward. My assessment is called Stealth EQ, the Undercover Sales Etiquette Assessment. And what it does is it actually goes through a series of yes or no questions that assesses people through this funnel. So anybody can give it, even if they've never led, massive sales teams. They'll still be able to answer these questions to determine if the person's a good salesperson, going to perform well on your team. So, and I'll show you where that fits in, but it's all about identifying their behaviors. See, because sales, the interview is a sale. And if you look at it that way, you don't have to guess how people are going to perform in front of your clients because they're selling to you right now. So if you've already sold your own products, then you've learned something about sales and you've gone through your own sales training. So you know what steps have to be completed in order to complete a deal. And then you can assess a salesperson on if they're doing those things as they're being interviewed. And if they don't have any experience, you can tell from their raw talent if there's someone that you can train to get up to speed. So here's my recruiting funnel. I like all my funnels. They're hourglass shapes, super sexy. not your traditional upside down triangle. So we've already said that you have a great product and compensation, right? Okay. So that's your offer. You're offering people the opportunity to sell this amazing product that's changing businesses, changing lives, and these are the rewards that you're going to get for doing that. So this is the offer. Similar in your sales funnel, you have to start with a really good product or offer that your market wants. So then your first step is sourcing. Sourcing is the recruiting term for getting candidates into the top of the funnel. So multiple ways to do that. You should always have a job listing on your site that says you're hiring salespeople. Always, 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 because you're always going to have people lined up for that role. And then, traditional job boards, direct outreach on LinkedIn, networking, all the same kinds of strategies that you would use to get clients into your funnel, you're going to use to get salespeople into your recruiting funnel. So be creative. I've used in the past Instagram ads and things like that to target the audience that I wanted to capture. So sourcing, and by the way, not enough people are advertising jobs on social media like Facebook and Instagram. So it's a really good opportunity to jump out, and it's really super cheap to do so. So that's that's a fun thing to play with. And then all those people come in, you give them homework. Each step has homework. Can you see that? No, we'll put it over here. Homework. So the homework here is to submit your resume. Okay? And then, so maybe up here, like, if I'm sourcing, maybe I'm at a job fair, recruiting fair, something like that. My offer is up here, and maybe that's in the form of a speech, or maybe that's in the form of a conversation when someone comes up to my table, or that's in the form of the job ad. I really love videos included in your offer because it helps people get to know you right away, who they're working for. So a video, like a 1 to 2 minute video on why your company and the rewards. So then the offer, and then so all that goes into sourcing, and then you get candidates in your pipeline. So then you start pre-screening them. And you're looking at their resumes, but what are we looking for? If I think the best advantage that any company can have in the market when it comes to hiring salespeople is knowing how to train salespeople. Because, and that doesn't, you can have a trainer on board. You can hire someone like me, use my courses. That's what they were designed for. Is being able to train salespeople, especially green salespeople, maybe, out of college or 1 or 2 years experience, or someone coming, doing a career transition or something like that, rather than competing for the experienced salespeople that everyone else is also competing for, who come at very high prices, right? If you left a job that you were making $250,000 a year, you can't take too much of a hit to go into a new job, and start building up a new thing. So they naturally come with a higher price tag. But if you can train new people, that gives you a huge advantage in the market. And if you can convince people to do sales that weren't even thinking about doing sales, that's amazing too. So then there's a lot of, massive sales organizations that's exactly how they operate. Like a lot of the MLMs and things like that, or the network marketing, they're bringing people who never even wanted to do sales, but they knew they wanted to change their life in some way. So they're teaching them, like, here's what's so awesome about sales. And then here's why it's so awesome about our company. And here's why you should do sales for our company. So they're not even competing for the same people who want to do sales, but they're going out and converting people who didn't even think about doing sales into selling them on selling. So you source them, and then you pre-screen them. And what you're looking for here is behaviors. I don't have time to go into too much detail about what behaviors, but here you're looking for behaviors and professionalism and things like that. You're not necessarily looking for sales experience. I actually, the way I was trained and the way that I've always recruited was to completely ignore their sales experience, because sometimes bringing in someone with a ton of experience who isn't working, there might be a reason why. So, and a lot of times they have bad habits. So it's much harder, much more difficult to break a bad habit and train a new habit rather than to start fresh from someone who's never been out in the field creating bad habits. So we pre-screen them, and then we bring them in for the interview process. And then, so that's the assessment. People always ask me, what questions should I ask to hire the right salesperson? Let me tell you, it has nothing to do with the questions that you ask. It is all about how they answer and how they conduct themselves through the interview process. So when you know what to look for as far as what it takes to sell, then you can look for that instead of someone who's trained to give really smart answers to interview questions. Because there's only they're all variations on the same questions, right? Like leadership, like motivation, behaviors as far as like what they've done in the past, their integrity in situations. And they're pretty much predictable. They're leading questions. So it's like, tell me a time when you were a leader. Okay. It doesn't take a brainiac to figure out you want me to tell you how great a leader I am. So like, I'll figure out something. So it's not about the questions you ask. I mean, you can ask any question and get the information that you need to see how they're going to perform, if they have the emotional intelligence necessary to perform in the job. That's the most highly weighted part of the assessment that I developed is what's their EQ? How do we determine from their interview process what their emotional quotient is? And it's not a test that we give them. We're actually observing their behavior to determine their emotional intelligence. So it's really unique in that way, really fun. And also they don't know they're being assessed. And even they know they're being interviewed, so they know they're being assessed in some way, but they don't know what the questions are. They assume the questions are the questions that you're asking them, but they're actually none of those are on the assessment. So you have this assessment, which is I recommend at least 2 interviews for that, because people will behave differently in different situations. So it enforces, maybe they did great on the first interview and you're really excited to hire them. The second interview, they didn't perform the same way. But you need someone that can be consistent. So doing more than one interview helps you. You're basically collecting more data to get more accurate results, to put it in, scientific, technical terms. Too many people shorten this interview process. They're not spending enough time recruiting, and then they bring on the wrong people, and then they keep them on too long. So it's like they're hiring fast and firing slow. And you really need to be hiring slow, firing fast. I don't like the word fire. Letting go into the universe of other possibilities that are better for them. That's how I think of it. So you pre-screen them, you assess them in the course of at least 2 interviews. And then it's amazing how many companies don't actually have the candidate sell to them. There's nothing that says you can't make the candidate do work to get the job. Because you don't have to wait for them to go through training to see how they're going to, if they're trainable. You don't have to, or if they're going to show up on time, or if they're going to do the work necessary. Make them fight for the job, because then this is all also what's called building value. Right? Sales is supposedly a job anybody can do, doesn't take even a college degree. It doesn't require any special certifications or government approval or anything like that. So fall for most sales jobs. So through this recruiting funnel, especially commission only, because you would think that because you're not paying a salary, it should be really easy to just get hired and start working. And that's a huge mistake I see people trying to build commission-only sales teams make, is that they don't have this strong funnel. They bring on just as many people as they can. And then they haven't built this value around their opportunity because maybe they don't know the value. Maybe they don't get yet that the wrong rep can give a bad reputation for you in the market, or can lower the standards for everyone else. So all in here, you're building value. The harder they're working for the position, the more they're going to value it when they get it. And so as they go through these, they're getting more and more excited about receiving an offer from you if you feel like they're the right person. But again, the way I set up this funnel is pretty much foolproof, because no one's getting through it unless they're the right person. I don't have to make any really hard decisions about who to bring on, because I've created the process for them to eliminate themselves because they don't want to do the work. Or they have failed my assessment. So I just know from the assessment that it's a bad choice. Even if emotionally I feel attached to them, or maybe I feel excited to work with them, if the assessment keeps me in check to make sure that I'm not overlooking some red flags. It's like a bad relationship, right? You go on a bunch of dates and then you see the red flags. And you're like, oh, my last partner did that. I promised I would never do that. But you get wooed by, everything else, and you forget to pay attention to the red flags. Well, it's the same thing in the recruiting process. There's red flags that you can get emotionally sold on the person, but they're telling you in the interview process that they're not going to perform to your standards. So, one really simple one is showing up on time for the interview. I didn't think I'd ever have to say this, but you'd be amazed how many people show up late for interviews, or walk in right at the minute that the interview is supposed to start, and they're all frazzled and it's always traffic, right? Traffic, so I couldn't find the office or all that. That's exactly how they're going to perform with clients. Okay. And that doesn't help build trust for the client. So then we bring them in. So I said it's okay to give them homework, right? So after this interview, the last step that they need to complete is to give us a pitch. Now, not everybody's doing this pitch because we already eliminated a lot of people. But in this pitch, I'm going to give them a one page of a product we sell. If I have a really complex product or offering that's going to take a while, I might just make up something different, make up a product for my target market, or dummy down a product that we sell so that they can have a one page that describes the product and who the target market is, and that's it. And then you say, here's the information that we're giving you. When you come in next week, you're going to pitch to us. And then see what they do, See where their level of understanding is on what they have to do to build this from scratch. Now, that's why you don't want to make it too complicated, because it might take you weeks to develop a really great sales strategy for a complex product. So you really want to make it a simple product to understand. It's not about, how smart they are understanding the product, but it's more about how they deliver and pitch to you. So then this works great if you have a group of people or group of managers or whoever, founders, doesn't even have to be people involved in sales, to sit in the room and hear the pitch. Or if you're doing inside sales or phone sales, do this over the phone. Have them pitch to you over the phone or over Skype, and have them do what's closest to how you guys actually sell. So in the pitch, then you've got to give them what the customers give them, which is objections, and see how they handle it. Okay, you want to give them at least 3 objections, see how they handle it, and then give them feedback from a training perspective, and ask them to do it again with the feedback or part of it again, depending how long it was. These pitches should only be 5 to 10 minutes. So we're not asking them to do an hour-long presentation. If they do, then they need to be trained on giving short presentations. But so here we're going to actually have them do the pitch. And then you're going to see right there, if you're assessing them properly, if this is something that they may be really good at selling themselves, but when it comes to, transitioning to this really high pressure situation where they know they're on the spot and they're talking about something that maybe they don't know fully, which is going to be the case when they first start working for you, how are they going to perform, And then, so then they have that homework, and then you always wait. Like, you never offer them the next thing right away on the phone. Even if you know, which you should know, you always wait at least 2 days or more to bring them on to the next step. So here, like, you'll know if they're right, and then here is like where you make an offer and then bring them on board. And then assuming they're going to accept here because you've made them work hard for it. A lot of times what happens in recruiting is you have people looking for, they're interviewing for multiple positions, and you lose people that would have been really good because someone else wooed them more or made it sound like a more valuable opportunity. So creating this funnel also helps eliminate those possibilities where, some salespeople or experienced salespeople, they don't really care what they sell. They're just looking for the best compensation package. Those aren't necessarily the people that you want, because they're just going to leave every time there's a new, better, shinier compensation plan out there. So how enthusiastic are they too about selling what you sell? And then when you do hire them, this is the reason why my funnels are hourglass shaped, because they don't focus just on getting to this point where you hire someone. You have to consider that your recruiting funnel continues beyond the point where the person gets hired and says yes. So what happens here? So then they have probably, paperwork and all that. That's still part, you're still going to eliminate people there, okay? And then you have a welcome. So here's one of my super secrets. That's a lot of S's. Here's one of my super secrets for retaining great salespeople is once you get them on board, have a welcome. If it's one person, take them out to dinner. If it's a group of people, have a reception. But get the people that are most important in their lives there. Get them involved. This is so non-traditional, especially in the corporate space, that we're bringing in people's family into the recruiting process? What? But you have to consider that when a person was going through this process, think about yourself when you interviewed for a job. Who was the person? There was a person that you were talking to about all of this as you were going through the process, and which offer you should accept and which company you should work for. That person, so like maybe if it's an entry-level rep, it's probably their parents. One parent probably stronger opinion than the other. So they're asking them, Mom, what do you think about this company? I had 2 offers. Which one should I accept, Mom? Right? So mom's opinion has a big part of it. If they're married, it's their spouse is going to have a say in this, and they're also going to have a say in this. This goes for commission only. This goes for salaried reps. It goes for all kinds of reps. So, because what happens here is when things get difficult, and sales is, right? Get a lot of rejection. At some point, all that excitement about coming on board and making tons of money gets hit with, reality of people being rude to you on the phone or email and telling you, don't bother me. So who do you think is the person that they go home to and say, I don't know if this is for me. I just can't do it anymore. I'm miserable. I hate going to work on Mondays, It's the same person that they were talking to up here. So we want to get that person in and on board with what we're building and tell them that it's going to be hard. And your son or your daughter or your wife or your husband, they're going to come home. Sometimes they're going to be exhausted. And sometimes they're going to have to work through the weekend, or they're going to have to stay late hours sometimes, because this is the goal that you guys want to accomplish as a family. And this is what we want to accomplish as a business. And this is how we're working together so that both parties can get what they want and get that really important person on board with what you're building too. Because then when they come home and they say, I don't think I can do this, instead of the parent or wife, spouse or whatever saying, why don't you start looking for something else? This isn't for you. Instead of them saying that, they're going to say, keep going. Remember this, this is getting you somewhere. This is hard, but it's going to get easier, and you're going to get rewards at the end, and it's going to be worth it. You need that person in your corner at home. It's a huge part of recruiting in general, especially sales, that people take for granted, is the importance of family or really close friends or whoever the person is that they rely on as a sounding board to get them involved here. So we bring them in and we get the family on board, and then they start their training. So for me, whenever I hired a new rep, I took them out to dinner with their spouse and my spouse. So we got to know each other on a really personal basis right away. And I got the spouse on board with why it was so important that we were doing what we were doing, and how, what they were going to expect going forward. And then when we had rewards and bonus trips and things like that, always included the spouse or that person who's really important to them to bring with them on the trip, because they did make a contribution to them reaching that goal. And that was through their encouragement and support. So then you have them go through a training, and you tell them that not everyone's going to get through the training. We're going to still be looking at who we need to eliminate during the training process. And then finally, you're going to have review, I would say a first quarter review. And over here, actually through the whole funnel, you're creating something called standards of performance. Like I said, my Catholic school handwriting. You can tell I didn't get a great grade in penmanship. So, because that's my brain works faster than my writing. So standards of performance. We're setting standards all the way from the beginning. This is what we expect. This is what's going to happen in the recruiting process. Not everyone's going to make it, but you're not doing this in a way that's mean or rude. You need to woo them too to work for you. So you need to sell, and then you need to buy. You need to sell them on the opportunity, why it's so amazing. And then you need to start buying why they're going to be good at it. So you give and then you take away, so to speak. But then you create standards of performance. Here's what we expect from you. And you tell them at that welcome meeting, you share that with the parents too. You tell them when they get the offer, here's what we're offering, but here's what we expect in return. You're creating their activity standards, their performance standards, their production standards, so that right at, your first quarter, yes, you've already invested in training to get these people on board, your time and training, whatever you're spending to support them. So we want to, of course, make sure they're the right people. But even if you got the wrong people at this point, their first quarter review should be the last time that you have them in your office. Because if they, obviously you want to make them reasonable standards. But if they're not meeting those reasonable standards, you need to let them go. Let go. Which is such a huge problem I see, especially in small companies and large companies. It's actually consistent across the board. The people are keeping on salespeople way too long. And this has a lot of negative effects. It's not just about them earning their keep, so to speak. If they're earning their salary, then why keep them on board? Well, first of all, there's a lot more that you're putting into them than just their salary. So you have to add all of those things up, all of the resources and time and marketing that you're pushing behind them. You have to add all that up to the real cost, benefits, and all that. But also there's this unseen cost, which is how it affects the rest of the team and how it affects your reputation in the market, right? Because in the beginning, we said hiring the wrong person can give you a bad rep in the market. And a lot of times you don't get a second chance with those customers. So that was your chance with that salesperson. You had the wrong salesperson. It's not a good thing. But then you have this other factor of, if you don't set the standards of performance, the salespeople will set the standards of performance. Okay? And that is all in relation to what you allow. It's similar to having children and boundaries, right? Of course, they're adults and all that. But if you don't create boundaries and standards for them to uphold, and whatever then you allow becomes the standard. So if you say, you have to make 5 sales a month to keep your job, okay? And then the person makes 4 sales and you go, well, next month we'll try for 5 again, and then they don't make it again, or they do make it, but then they go back down to 3. And if this is your base, this has to be your bottom level of acceptance, because it has to be something where you go, no, this is not working. Because 5 sales is the minimum, but you should be doing like 15, 3 times that if you're performing. But I know that if you have less than 5, you're not even working, Of course, the numbers vary depending on the kind of business that you're in. But we need to let them go, and also so that they can find the thing that's right for them. We had commission-only reps. So if they weren't selling, they weren't making money. And yet people were still staying and sticking around and showing up and coming to meetings and things like that. We're like, what are you doing? You're not making any money. I don't know. Like, why are you here? So sometimes you just have to let them go and say, this is not for you. But if we keep you here, you're not going to find the thing that's for you. So that's why I say, when I think about firing people, I hate the word fire, because you're not firing them. You're releasing them so that they can go and find the thing that's right for them. Because we have done all of this work up until this point. Oh, I forgot. Another thing is motivation and leadership. Oh, I forgot, except it's super important. You know the saying that the fish stinks from the head down? So you really have to take a look at it. If the culture of your sales team is like angry and depressed, and you don't have that positive vibe going on in the sales office, you really have to look at management and leadership and how they're affecting that. So salespeople need constant motivation. Constant, even if they're fully trained, which I can help you with. If they're fully trained, they need constant motivation and coaching and overcoming, limiting mindsets to get them past those hurdles constantly, every day, multiple times a day. I called my coach like 3 times a day, and more, probably 10 times. I wanted to change, but it takes that much. So you have to be willing to invest that. Your leaders have the time, right? They can't be selling too. If you have salespeople, the salespeople sell and the leaders lead them. So in that regard, leadership isn't always about selling. It's about creating. They should have sold your product at some point. I highly suggest not bringing a sales manager that hasn't sold. So promote from within, in other words, but then creating that like constant, like when you think of the word boiler room, I don't think of something negative. I think of this like sparks. Everything's on fire. They're sparking up. Everyone's excited. There's the bell's dinging and the board's ringing and everyone's running up. I used to have a whiteboard, so people would just go up and check off every time they made an appointment. Ding, 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 Reward the little things, because the sales, it's much easier to appreciate because the money comes with it. But all the other things that don't necessarily pay off right away, make sure that you're rewarding those. I used to have my office manager was basically the cheerleader too, because I was in my office, 2 rooms over, but she was in the quote boiler room. Every time there was someone up there, she made sure that everyone like stopped and clapped and all of that, because it's really important to keep them going through the day. So having that constant motivation and leadership, and this is also really difficult if you have one person, because, think, I can't spend all that time with one person when I should be spending it with 10. But even if it's one person, they need to be constantly motivated and led by you, or a really great sales leader that's going to take your place once you figure this all out. So that's my recruiting funnel. You guys just got so much. Did you find that valuable? I mean, I guess if you never had intention to hire a salesperson, then no, but maybe you didn't have the intention to hire a salesperson and now you're thinking maybe you can do it. Maybe you should do it. Because certainly if you're really going to hit the big numbers in your business, you've got to leverage other people to sell for you, so you can really lead the company. If you're a one-person shop right now, yes, that's right now. But to grow and scale, you need the people behind you to do that. So that starts with setting up a good recruiting strategy, having a great assessment, which I have called Stealthy Q, but also having an amazing training program, which is my sales launch code accelerator that you can pop people into. It means having a well-defined sales process, which is a sales playbook, which I help design for startups. So having all of this, and then of course, having great leaders leading all of this. So that's the sales coach coaching also program that it's not ready yet, but we're developing that, and how to coach sales coaches, how to coach the next generation of sales leadership. So let me know if you have any questions about that. You could pop them in the chat. You can send me an email later. I answer all of them. And if you haven't already, join in my free training. You can find the link right below this video and share it with all your friends. Because I'm on a mission to help companies with a mission build and scale their startup sales teams. So I would love to have you join me and help you get where you want to go. All right. Till next week. Bye. It's the Monday Morning Motivator with Magoch.